Hey everybody, thanks for joining me on The Empty Theater. It's episode 12. I am Brody, and it's a very special episode because I'm here to answer a question. It's 2015, and the question on everybody's mind is, where the hell is my hoverboard?
He's on a hoverboard!
Now, 26 years ago, Back to the Future 2 premiered and introduced us all to hoverboards. And ever since then, we've been wanting hoverboards and asking for them and demanding them, especially ones that work on water.
Hoverboards don't work on water! Unless you've got power!
But we don't have commercially available ones ready for us this year, and we probably won't for several years, and there is a very good reason why. Try and bear with me here. I'm going to be talking about time travel, of course, and parallel universes. It might get a little tricky, and I'm not good with graphics, so there's no chart for you. Now, the start of Back to the Future 1 is Timeline A. That's the timeline we exist in, that Marty exists in, that everybody we see at the start of the movie with Meek George and Bully Biff as adults, they all exist in that timeline, Timeline A. That's the one we've been enjoying our entire lives. But by the end of the movie, that has shifted to Timeline B, with confident famous author George, all the happy McFlys, meek and subservient Biff. From this point on, the only Timeline A character is Marty. Everybody is now Timeline B.
Aren't you going up to the lake tonight? You've been planning it for 2 weeks.
Well, Mom, we talked about this, but how can I go to the lake? The car's wrecked.
Wrecked? When the hell did this happen? And why
Quiet down. I'm sure the car's fine.
Why am I always the last one to know about these things?
See, there's Biff out there waxing it right now.
Now, when he returns to 1985 at the end of the first film, he's in Timeline B because of his meddling back in 1955. George, Lorraine, Biff, his siblings, Jennifer, the Doc, they're all Timeline B versions of themselves, and we never encounter Timeline A versions again. We know that these parallel universes and timelines exist because Marty knows about and has memories of Timeline A, despite now being in Timeline B. What happened to Timeline B, Marty? That's a question for an entirely different video because there's a lot to unpack there. In Back to the Future 2, Doc and Marty take a quick trip to Timeline C, 1985, the crazy tyrant Biff timeline, but they have all their memories of Timeline B. The Doc doesn't know about Timeline A because at this point, he's the Doc of Timeline B, not A. So we know that multiple timelines and parallel timelines can coexist. This is also where they lay out how, in order to jump back into Timeline B 1985, they can't go to the future because they'd be going to Timeline C's 2015. They have to go all the way back to the branching point of all these timelines, November 12th, 1955.
That's right, Doc. November 12th, 1955.
Unbelievable that old Biff could have chosen that particular date. It could mean that that point in time inherently contains some sort of cosmic significance, almost as if it were the temporal junction point for the entire space-time continuum. On the other hand, it could just be an amazing coincidence.
Everybody's new personality in 1985, Timeline B, it's all because of Marty's meddling in the week that ended November 12th at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance. But it's just the movie that's in Timeline B. We're all still existing in Timeline A, just watching shit go down in Timeline B. And of course, if the week ended November 12th, the week that was Marty's escapade through his past started November 5th, which Doc himself said that was when he came up with the flux capacitor.
Here's a red-letter date in the history of science, November 5th, 1955. Yes, of course, November 5th, 1955.
Why? I don't get what happened.
That was the day I invented time travel.
Now in Timeline A, the original one, the one without Marty's interference, the Doc spends 30 years trying to perfect time travel and the time-traveling car.
It's taken me almost 30 years of my entire family fortune to realize the vision of that day. My God, has it been that long?
Hell, in Timeline C, he gets committed. But after that week of meddling, November 12th is the veering off point for Timeline B for the Doc too. All because Marty came back with the time machine. The time machine that the Doc himself built. So he gets to tinker with it for an entire week. It's classic magician's misdirect. While we're off paying attention to Marty as he tries to hook his parents up, the Doc is all alone in the workshop with the time machine. Of course he's able to reverse engineer everything and cut the design time down drastically. He doesn't have to deal with all the trial and error anymore. He's given the finished product. And since he himself is the designer, it's easy for him to figure out how he did it. He fixes it to working order once to get Marty back to the future, and now he's got schematics that future Doc left for him back in 1885.
Inside, you will find repair instructions. My 1955 counterpart, that's me, should have no problem repairing it so that you can drive it back to the future.
Remember, the original plan was for him to take a trip into the future. He could have been planning to make upgrades with future technology, which we know he in fact did do when he got the hover conversion on the time machine, and he got the Mr. Fusion.
Hi, friends. Goldie Wilson III for Wilson Hover Conversion Systems. You know, when my grandpa was mayor of Hill Valley, he had to worry about traffic problems. But now, you don't have to worry about traffic.
But he also knows that there's more to it than just, great, now I have time travel. He still has to encounter Marty in the future. Cause and effect still exist. Marty has to go back to 1955 in the time machine that the Doc built in order for the Doc to build the time machine. So the Doc has this shit done and locked up by the early to mid 60s in timeline B. He's got 20 years now to fiddle around. So what does he do? It's the early 60s in Southern California and skateboarding's becoming a thing. Then he remembers the hoverboard that Marty brought back to 1955 from 2015 when Marty came back from the future at the end of the second film. Not only does the 1955 Doc know that the car can fly,
It actually flew.
Yeah, we had a hover conversion done in the early 21st century.
Incredible.
he also knows that it works on the smaller scale because Marty had the hoverboard. So he starts to work on the hover tech. Now, he only saw it briefly while fixing the DeLorean in 1955 to send Marty back to 1885. But he most likely not only took photos, but he still has those schematics that 1885 Doc sent him. Hell, he finished time travel. We know he has that. Who's to say he didn't do a covert trip into the future and retrieve the specs, return to the 60s and started working from there? You know what? We know by the end of the third movie that he's just bouncing around time in that really cool steampunk time traveling train of his, outfitting it with all the cool stuff he needs. It hovers, it flies. So why wouldn't he go around giving science just a gentle nudge forward? Hover tech in 2015? Why don't we try getting it just a little bit early? Who knows? Now, where we're at now in timeline A with hover tech, with various companies working on it, with Lexus, they have theirs. Just these little boards that have to be plugged in and on a very specific surface. They were at that point back in the 70s in timeline B. So here we all are 40 years later. Timeline B has it down to a hard, fast science. It's so dominant in the marketplace that Mattel was able to release Barbie's dream hoverboard in timeline B for 2015. Look at computers in the 70s and 80s and computers now. Apply a similar time frame to the evolution of hover tech. And it totally makes sense that they'd be more advanced in hover tech. But that's timeline B, where Doc didn't have to spend 30 years trying to perfect time travel. He could devote that time to hover tech and perfecting that. But here we are in timeline A, where it took the Doc forever to perfect time travel and never got to tinker with hover tech. So we've just got to wait. We're close now. It's just going to be a few more years. That was Back to the Future and Hoverboards. This has been The Empty Theater. I'm Brody, and thanks for watching. Hey everybody, thanks for joining me on the Empty Theater web series. You can follow me on Twitter and like us on Facebook. Both those links are down in the description. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode. And be excellent to each other.